Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I just want to say, at any time you don't want to talk about something, just let me know. Um, but I'm hoping you can help others because at any time anyone can fall down a bad road. I'm going to be honest right now, and I really haven't said this publicly ever. My brother had a drug addiction back in the day, and I'm one of six. And that one brother turned down a different road from the rest of us. So at any time, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Any one of our lives can take a change. And I want people to know that no one should think they're safe from addiction or trouble. So where I'll say you used to be in Florida. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Just I know is it Alexandra?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, tell me a little bit about you were in leading. How about you're 23 years old, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Talk about your childhood. Was everything good as a kid? Were you everything fine as a child?
So I had a really good childhood. Everything was great. The only thing I would say in my childhood that was not was my father did go to prison at one point. Other than that, my childhood was great. I had a
Okay.
loving family. They were very supportive. I had anything and everything I wanted. I was never abused. I just had so much love in the household that I grew up in, and I'm very thankful for that.
Where did things take a turn?
I would say when I was around 16 and in high school, things started to kind of take a turn. I don't want to say I was like sheltered, but I was a little bit. So, I wasn't exposed to a lot of the things people my age were, and I was really curious about them. And I'd say that's kind of when things started to go downhill. When I was 16, I also was sexually assaulted. And I think at that point in my life, it was just, I'm a 16-year-old girl. I don't understand. And I'm looking for something to, subside my feelings and numb the pain I'm feeling. Because even though, I mean, that was almost 10 years ago, even though that was only 10 years ago, people didn't speak about sexual assault and depression and mental health. There was such a stigma behind it, so it was like I had nowhere else to turn to at that point, I felt like.
And then you weren't living in Florida at the time, or no?
No, I was living in my hometown at the time.
Okay, in your hometown. And then at some point you did make your way to Florida. And why did you do that?
So I went to Florida to try to just better my life. I was not doing good at all, and I was at a breaking point. And it came to the point that I was like, if I don't do something, I'm gonna die from this. So I went to Florida for substance abuse treatment and mental health treatment, and I stayed down there almost 3 years. Um, and it did help me a lot, and I'd recommend anyone who's struggling to go get help. Um, yeah.
And when you were down there, so were you making progress and were things progressing?
Yes, they were.
Okay. At some point though, something went wrong, apparently.
Yes. I had met a guy that I was in treatment with, and seemed like a really nice guy at first. We got into a relationship. We graduated the program together, and I found out that he was very abusive, emotionally, physically, and it just kind of led me back down a wrong path, I guess you could say. We ended up breaking up, and I was in Florida completely by myself, like 1,000 miles away from my family,
Wow.
living in a hotel. So I wasn't like completely homeless at this point, but it was getting pretty bad again. So,
Wow. So what is at that point, um, what happened? Because I know there's more to the story and you can say what you want, but what happened next in your ordeal? I guess I'll put it at that, or your just bad situation.
so I met a guy through a mutual friend who I trusted. I hadn't known him that long, but it had been a really long time, since someone had offered me kindness or compassion. So I guess I just took the bait. Um, I was on the verge of being homeless, and, this man approached me and he said, I have a place you can stay so you're not having to sleep on the street, or in your car because he came up to me and, you're a young woman and it's not safe out here for you and you need somewhere safe, you can sleep at night and, you deserve to have food and shelter and I want to help you out, is what he told me, which is, that's a very common thing in trafficking. Those are the people who are at risk most.
Exactly. And that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit because I want you to help others that, could or may be in that situation. So at that point, did you take him up on his offer to his help that he was offering?
Yes, I did, because I was actually, my hotel room ran out the next day, and I was
Mhm.
going to be sleeping on the street if I didn't have somewhere else to go.
Okay. And so you went and moved in or lived with him.
No, he had offered an Airbnb that his family evidently owned. He offered me a room to stay in for a couple of nights until I could get back on my feet. And I ended up taking that offer. And he just drove me around and drove me around and drove me around for hours. And at that point, I'm kind of like freaking out because I'm like, where is this Airbnb you're talking about? And
Yeah.
it's like he was just, taking me everywhere but where he was saying he was going to, which was kind of a major red flag at this point. Um, and things just progressed very quickly after that, after the first few hours of being with this man.
Okay. And I take it it didn't end there. You didn't
It
it
did
it
not.
okay. And this is where you say what you want to say. Whereas, did it end up? Was there ever an Airbnb or a
There
place?
was not. That was a lie that he told me
So, in a way, you were being kidnapped right then,
and didn't know it, pretty
and
much.
didn't know it. But that's what happens often. Many times, you see in the movies on the white panel van kidnapping people. But this is how things are really done. They're
Yeah,
taking
and that's
advantage of people.
something I really wanted to talk about is, when we think of human trafficking, we think of like a creepy old guy in a white van, coming up to you. Do you want a puppy or do you want free candy? When
Yep.
in reality, it's literally right under our noses in our communities every day. And it's normally someone that does this and puts you into trafficking is someone that you trust.
And that's what people need to hear. And like I said, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Anyone could be vulnerable. Anyone's children could be vulnerable. So at that point, and like I said, if I'll ask, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but did it end up did that end in a really bad situation for you?
Yes, it did. My phones were stolen, my wallet was stolen, my car was stolen. I had no way to contact anyone for help. Um, and at that point, he was showing signs of physical assault and stuff like that. So at that point, it's like I'm kind of a little bit scared of this guy. And I don't know how I'm going to get out of this situation, so I'm just doing what I can to try to, I guess, survive at that point,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
absolutely.
um I, if I could do it over again, I would, but I think I was so afraid at that point to, the first night or two that he did have me, to try to make an escape. I didn't think it was going to end well. So
Yeah,
it's really fear, that can keep people stuck in that and literally physically not being able to get away from it.
so yeah, you were kidnapped, human trafficked, and I can were you did he hurt you physically? I mean,
Yes.
okay. And how long was it, like, this went on for days at a time or several
Yeah.
days?
I was with him for 3 nights and 3 days. I had already been reported a missing person in the state of Florida at that point. My mom was looking for me with multiple law enforcement agencies. But he was smart. He sold my phone to someone. So the whole time that they thought they were tracking me, they were tracking somebody else. And, my mom called my phone and somebody answered it. And my mom's like, Why do you have my daughter's phone? My daughter's a missing person." And the lady was like, a man sold me this phone basically, and he's not a good guy. And you need to come to the state of Florida as soon as you can get here and start looking for your daughter.
Wow. Is that what happened?
Yes, I had no idea that my mom was even in Florida. When I was able to escape and get to a phone and call her, by the grace of God, she was 15 miles away from me
And she had no idea where you were
or what was going on. She
or
had no
what was
idea.
how were you able to escape? Because there's been many situations like this where the attacker, he could kill someone. I mean, you had to be, but you took the risk for your own life. You took that risk.
So it just came down to I had the mentality of, if I don't do something, I'm gonna die. And I'd rather, die fighting, trying to get away from this man than just, submit to this and accept this as my fate. I tried to keep the mentality of I need to be smarter than my captor, and try to keep a level head, even though my emotions were running really high. The way I ended up escaping was I tried to gain some trust with him, and he left me by myself for about 15 minutes, and I took that opportunity and I ran and I ran for my life.
Wow.
So,
Has he been has justice found him? Was he arrested? Was he charged?
so he is currently incarcerated. Um,
Good,
we're
good.
still in the middle of an active case. I mean, I wouldn't say justice has, been served. Because with these cases, unfortunately, another thing I wanted to talk about, they're very hard to prove. You would think it wouldn't be, but they are.
True. And that's this. I mean, this person, he had probably done this before. I mean, eh, probably, and he would do it again. I bet if he got out.
There's no
Um,
doubt in my mind.
and so he is a predator.
There's no doubt in my mind. He's been incarcerated, but it's hard to prove things like this, because you know, when people do things like this, abductors and traffickers, they're very smart. They're not going to leave a paper trail of money or transactions. If something were to happen and they were to get arrested, that's going to be like, proof in a case like, oh, I did this to this person. And the thing that I found shocking is even with DNA evidence, that itself is not alone to convict someone because then comes into the argument of consent.
Yeah, which
Um,
is, and now you're kind of having to relive all of this and try to you're trying to prove something when you're just the victim.
yeah, yeah, because it was bad. I was painted out to be, a drug addicted homeless person, and it was awful, and it just nobody should go through that. The victimization after you're even back to safety and out of that situation.
Was anyone else involved, or it was him?
It was just him, and it was just me.
Okay, and like you said, this is more of what human trafficking. It comes in several ways. I
Mhm.
know, the movie Sound of Freedom came out, and on an international level, there's a big human trafficking at the southern border. They're human trafficking children. But this instance, I mean, in Flint, Michigan, where I am in Flint, Michigan, we've had about 7 or 8 women in the past 3 years disappear. They may have, left to go to Florida or California, and no one knows what happened to them. So it sounds like this is what happens. They're taking advantage of the vulnerability that you and others have.
Yes. Yes. Anyone, who doesn't have a stable place to live or, has any mental health or substance abuse issues, someone that is, in an area that's far away from their family or their home, They find these isolated people who need help, and they promise and offer them help with no intention of giving it to them.
Did he say or did he talk about what plans he had or what he was going to do with you? I mean, there was that situation in Ohio where a man kept women in a home for 3 years or more than that. Did he give any indication of where this was going?
He did. The night before I escaped, um, he still had my car, my vehicle, that he was using to drive around in. And he took me out to my vehicle, and something just told me to look in my wallet for some reason. I don't know if it was a God moment or what it was.
Okay.
And I realized that all of my identification was gone. Like my ID was gone, my social security card was gone, even my medical marijuana card was gone. Um,
Hmm.
there was no way to identify me. And then I looked in the back seat of my vehicle, and I saw all these cleaning supplies, mockets, buckets, mops, bleach, sponges, stuff like that. And it just kind of hit me like, this guy's going to get rid of you pretty soon. It's not looking good right now. I
You
couldn't
thought
think of any other reason he would take all of my identification and then come back with a bunch of crime scene cleaning supplies.
so he was going to murder you.
That's what I think. And
So
I made my mind up at that moment, like I have to get out of here as soon as possible, or I'm not going to get the chance to.
in this situation, it could be that ending, which is absolutely horrible. Human trafficking sometimes, where like people get moved, like he could have taken you to California or wherever, another country. So this is where human trafficking, it is real. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen, and it might be too intense to see that movie, Sound of Freedom, but there's certain people are saying, oh, it's a conspiracy. It doesn't really happen. It does happen.
It happens all around us and we don't even realize it.
How so? How? Because you always hear about people like be have your eyes out at the mall or if you're traveling somewhere. What advice do you have to parents? I'm like I said, I have two young children. Others are watching right now who have teenagers. What would you suggest to people?
From an early age, teach your children to be aware of their surroundings. Teach them not everyone has good intentions. And I know that that sucks to teach children from a young age, but it's the truth and it's going to keep them safe, later on. Even as a child, I was that kid that like would run up to a stranger, and give them a hug. And I was just so outgoing, and I had no fear. I didn't think that there are bad people in the world who do things like this to people. And before I met evil and looked evil in the eyes, I didn't believe it either. I'm not gonna lie. I knew it was a problem, but I didn't know how much of a problem it was.
You
To
didn't
say
think
the
it could happen.
least,
You didn't think it could happen to you.
in a million years, I never thought it would happen to me. I would share things on Facebook about missing girls and stuff like that. And like a couple years ago, I just saw in one of my Facebook memories, I had shared a missing girls poster. And I probably thought, 3 years ago, that would never be me. And it ended up being me. It can
And
happen to anyone.
And I found you because you commented on the story out of Alabama about the missing woman. I think you were similar age to her, I
Yes.
believe. And you were hoping that it wasn't a hoax, which now it turns out it looks like she lied about the entire thing because that even makes it tougher for people who have been through situations like that. That's one reason why you're talking to me, you said.
Yeah, yeah, because, it I'm not only thinking about like the resources that were exhausted to look for her, it just makes people not want to take it as serious, when we see stuff like this. And it's something that needs to be taken serious. Um, people might be more weary now to, you know, go out and look for people or help with these search parties or, I know I doubt that law enforcement would be, not be as taking it as serious, but people in like the general public, it kind of just makes it look bad. It's not a good look.
When you were with him, this horrible individual, we'll call him the devil. When you were with him, did he like lock you in the room, or was it more of a mental control?
It was more of a mental and physical control. Just, there were a lot of threats of if you call the police, your family will be killed. If you try to get help, nobody's going to believe you. It was a lot of mental and physical abuse. And if I didn't, comply to him or what he was wanting me to do, I was beaten, I was raped, I had awful things happen to me, I was tortured, I had cigarettes put out on me, I was cut with broken crack pipes and stuff because I was being held in a house that they manufacture crack in.
Oh my god.
Um, a lot of things, yeah. It was at that point I felt like I had no say so, and I felt like maybe if I just do what he's telling me to, I have a better chance of making out of this alive.
And that's why it's everyone wants to be a, Monday morning quarterback, like the situation with the woman in Alabama. And it's really sad unless you're in that situation, you really don't know what it's like or what mental state someone's in. So I always don't like the people who are commenting or judging, because you really shouldn't judge someone because you don't know literally what they're going through.
And like I said, when NBC News did the report on what happened to me, the comments under it were terrible. They were horrible. Like grown women saying, she's lying. How could someone force you to sleep with someone else? How could someone force you to do this? Were they literally holding a gun to your head and making you do it? And it's just like someone doesn't have to hold a gun to your head to make you do something. If they're beating you and they are sexually assaulting you and threatening to kill you or your family, like you're probably 9 out of 10 times going to comply to what they're telling you to do.
And I'm going to bring this up because I saw the movie, and I know some say it's a conspiracy theory, but it's true. Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire, that was in Florida. There were women who they were younger. They were 13, 15, 14, 15. They're depressed. They were going through bad times in their lives. Those were the ones that
Mhm.
he seized on and groomed them. And so it happens. And I don't like the people who are saying now, like this movie Sound of Freedom, and it's about a man, I believe, a real life story, who tried to save children from human trafficking. I don't know how anyone can say it's not happening, because it seems like they're living in a fantasy world, and you're only hurting by the media bringing it up. Oh, it's a conspiracy. No, it's happening.
It's literally happening. you know,
Yeah.
Probably in a neighborhood in your city and you don't even realize it. It could be your neighbor, it could be your pastor, it could be, it's not these creepy old guys that movies portray. It's literally people that are trustworthy people. And that's how they get you. You're not going to willingly go with someone that looks creepy and looks like they have bad intentions for you, but say that an old teacher or an old pastor or a neighbor, someone comes up to you, you're much more willing to, I guess, take the bait from that.
Exactly. And I just, once again, I'm praying for you. And the big question now, how are you doing now? You said you still have the court stuff to go through. Are you with family? Are you healing? Are you getting therapy? Are you getting help?
I am trying to, but I think a huge part of my healing process is to help other people, to
Mhm.
get my story out there. And when I'm fully healed and to the point that I can help other people, I would love to do that. Honestly, like I said, I asked God to turn my pain into purpose. I was adopted from Russia when I was 1 and brought to the
Oh,
United States.
wow.
And my mom always told me, you have a purpose. You would not be here with me if you didn't. And I asked for years and years and years, God, show me my purpose. God, show me my purpose. And even though I had to go through this horrible, horrific, painful thing, I think that's what it took for him to show me this is your purpose. This is what, you came on this earth to do, is to share your story and help other people who are going through this. Get the awareness out there.
And that's, I appreciate you coming on with me, and I would love it. Maybe one day you'd be able to speak to schools or so forth. Someone on the live chat asked a question, and and it's an easy question to ask or think about. But when you were in Florida and were in the motel with 1 day left, why didn't you go back home? Some people, but they don't
That
know.
was actually the plan. The
Oh,
plan was to go back home the next day.
oh,
But the thing would be, I wouldn't have somewhere to sleep that night. So, like I said, my home was 1,000 miles away, and I actually had plans with my mom to come back the next day. That's kind of what set the alarm bells off, is when I was due to be home the next day and I just didn't show up and I wasn't answering my phone. My mom knew, hey, something's wrong.
wow. Wow. Um, Let me give you a situation. I've known people who get frustrated with their family, and it's been females in some instances, some males as well. Like I told you about my brother earlier, but they're like, I'm fed up, and they're adults. They're over 18 or even younger sometimes, but they're like, okay, I'm just leaving. I'm going to Florida, going to California. I'm going to handle it. And the parents will say, okay, just go and deal with it. That's you're saying you shouldn't even, we don't want to get to that point with people.
If there are other ways to do it, I would try that first, than just, packing up your stuff, moving across the country, with no family, no support. It's hard, it's not for everybody. It helped me a lot, but like I said, I had friends that I met in treatment that I watched die, that came to Florida, to better their life, and their life ended there because just the temptation. And it's a good place to find recovery, but it's a good place to relapse.
And
So
if you're depressed, especially if you are addicted, the people like this individual, this horrible person, they are seeking out individuals like you, correct?
yes,
Whether when where at? Where at a mall, down the street, in a neighborhood? Where are these people? Everywhere?
that could be anywhere.
Because we always hear stories. There's a big mall in Metro Detroit down here, along I-75, which is a big interstate, and there's always talks about human trafficking at the mall, and I'm like, oh, does that really happen? But for after talking to you, these people are these devil people are really smart. They seem to know how to pick up when someone's vulnerable.
They do. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, because it does. People can get kidnapped from malls and stuff like that. That happens. But I mean, the majority of the time, it's someone looking for someone who's vulnerable, who doesn't have a stable place to stay or something like that, and taking advantage of that.
And they then forge a relationship, and then all of a sudden it changes into where they're stuck.
Yes.
Wow. And like you said, I probably have people watching right now. I had a woman comment here. I'm going to read it. She said, "Wow, my twin daughters are 25. This is so scary. I'm so sorry." Um, Other people just saying, "Yeah." And so, I mean, it like I said, it doesn't matter what city you're in, what town you're in. All parents, even if you think your kids are perfect, it can happen.
It can. And I'm originally from a very, very small town.
Oh,
Um, and we've recently had women start going missing, at an alarming rate for it to be a small town. And, we don't really know what's going on. We don't know if they're predicting it could be an active serial killer in the state that I live in. We don't know if it's, a serial killer. We don't know if it's human trafficking. All the girls, that have disappeared do look a lot alike. Um, so I mean, that could be a serial killer, or that could be a trafficker. Sometimes traffickers, prefer a certain look, or you know what I'm saying. And it's just like to think that we're in such a small town and women are going missing. Like, it doesn't just have to be a big city, you know?
No, you're right, and I just looked up statistics, and I'm shocked. In the United States, and as of last year, the amount of females that are missing, 62,000, that no one knows where they're at, which is I had no idea. I mean, and they could be just living another life somewhere, or they could be entered into a world of human trafficking. So, wow, I did not know that statistic until I looked at that just now. That's a lot of people.
It is, and it's terrifying. And part of the reason I fought so hard to survive what I went through was because I just remember the night before I escaped, I was looking up at the ceiling. I was laying on this dirty floor in this house they had me in, and I was just talking to God, and I was like, please help me out of this situation, because all I could think about was my mom. I was like, I just disappeared, and like, if I die, my mom is never going to get any answers about what happened to me. And she's going to spend the rest of her life searching for me, or not knowing if I'm dead, or, if he did kill me, I know I wouldn't have had a proper burial. Would I be able to be at peace? Like, would she be able to be at peace knowing that she has no idea if I'm alive, if I'm dead, if I'm in the country, if I'm out of it, that she would be looking for a way to bring me home the rest of her life.
Someone just asked, and they may have missed it. How long were you missing for? It was about 3 or 4 days.
Yes.
And I didn't know that until the question was asked by one of my followers here, that you were planning to come home that very next day
Yes.
when this man, this horrible individual, did this. And so he had a plan. He knew what he was going to do. It sounds like he sold your phone. He had it planned. It all planned out. It sounded like.
Yes. I was actually able, thankfully, to get my phone back. I
Oh,
was able to get my car back because when he realized that I escaped, he hauled out of there, left
oh,
my
really?
car, all kinds of stuff. And I ran out of the house, and I ran across like this intersection of traffic. I almost probably looked crazy. I almost got hit by a car. And I was running from business to business, screaming at my lungs, I've just been kidnapped. Can someone help me? And
Oh my
people
God.
were locking me out of their businesses, saying, go away. Like, we want no parts in this.
Oh my God.
Nobody would help me until I finally found it was a CVS across the street. I had to run across like a 4-lane intersection of traffic, and I run in there, and I'm probably looking crazy because I have no shoes, and I haven't been able to bathe or anything like that, and I just start screaming like, somebody help me. I just escaped someone who's been holding me hostage. And I thank God for the people that worked at that CVS, because they were on it. Like, they hid me in the back. They were like, we want to make sure he doesn't come back around to try to find you. They called the police, and they put me on the phone with my mom.
Oh,
And my mom was like, where are you? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, I'm here in Florida. She said, I've been here in Florida the past 2 days working with different law enforcement agencies, going door to door, knocking on doors, looking for you, retracing your steps, where the phone, which was stolen, it wasn't me that she was
yeah.
looking at, but she later learned that. She was doing everything she could, literally just knocking, going to bad areas, looking for me by herself.
Wow.
And
And
I get on the phone with her, and tell her my location. She's like, I am 15 minutes down the road from you. She was like, I'm gonna tell the police where you are. She was like, stay hidden. And whenever I get there, we will have the police bring you out to me. Um, and
wow.
it was just like, this is cliche to say, but it was kind of like a movie. Like, when I came out, I just ran into my mom's arms and hugged her. And she said, I thought I was never going to see you again. And
And there was a good chance that was going to be true.
yeah,
Yeah. Someone wants to ask, and I don't know if you have the exact answer. What signs should we look for if someone is targeting you? I mean, how do we know? Because these predators, they're really good about the mental games they play. Is there anything that you look back and you're like, oh, something was a little weird there? Or how can you
Um,
how can you tell? Because some people, they're really good at the psychology of this.
Now that I look back at it, it was kind of a huge red flag that someone I didn't know that well was so, ready to help me. Because in this day and age, people aren't that ready to help other people. Like, it was kind of looking back, that's a red flag. It's like, yeah, we had a mutual friend, but I didn't really know this guy that well. And for him to just approach me and be like, oh, I'll give you a free Airbnb, and, you'll have somewhere you can lay your head at night, and, a meal or a hot shower. Like, that was probably not the smartest thing for me to just go along with that. But at the same time, I try to not beat myself up and victim blame myself, because at that point in my life, I hadn't been shown kindness or compassion in so long. I was just happy someone was willing to help me.
Okay, that's a good answer. If it sounds too good to be true, there's
It's probably too good to be true.
someone probably has an ulterior motive. Someone just said, "Pay attention to your surroundings."
Yes,
That
pay attention to your surroundings too. Um,
yeah, because you probably didn't even know exactly where you were,
I
right? I
had
mean,
no idea where I was. Like he took me into four different jurisdictions. So I mean, like this was a pretty big deal when it happened. Because it was not just in one city, it was four different jurisdictions that he took me into and sold me to different people. So I mean, it was, yeah, it
what do
was,
you what do you mean sold you to different people, like sexual?
yes,
So that's human trafficking. This is, I mean, and you saved your own life. I mean, you should be proud that you were able to break free. But how were they able to catch him? And I know if the case is ongoing, you can't say something, that's fine. But it sounds like law enforcement did do a good job that they were able to get him.
yeah. I'm a smart person. I'm not trying to brag on myself.
Good,
I
good.
tried to go back and like kind of remap with them where I was and like the houses I had been taken to. I have a photographic memory, so I literally described one of the places that he took me and they found it.
Wow. So
Um
that goes under what
Also,
this person just said. Pay attention to your surroundings because you never know when you're going to need that information.
yeah, and I actually like I had read like a long time ago before this ever happened. It was kind of like if you're to find yourself in this situation, what are some tips to help you survive? And one of them was pay, attention to, if you can, where are these people taking you? What road are you on? Are you passing any exits? So kind of what area you're in. Because, like I said, I wasn't from Florida, so I really didn't know where I was, anything about it. I had only been there for like 2 years at that point. So,
Wow.
it was scary being that far away from home and literally not knowing where I was, kinda.
And it showed you your mother truly loves you, that she showed. I mean, she were planning on reuniting with her, but the fact when you were missing, she boom, she got down there. So I'm hoping that helped your relationship with your family, with your mom, knowing that she went right down there for you.
It it did, and she is an amazing woman. She put her life in danger, to try to find me, her daughter, who she loves so much.
Yeah.
And she told me, I said, "How did you do it, mom?" And she said, I said, "Were you afraid?" And she said, "I actually wasn't." She said, I felt like, something was watching over me the whole time." And she said, I had to have no fear. I had to be strong for you." And I admire that a lot about her.
Um. Wow. So some people say, "Oh, you're too overprotective of a parent, or this or that." But I say nowadays, and I'm 48 years old. When I was younger, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the technology. Now there's so many ways for bad people to get inside your life. I mean, it's to I you don't have children, do you?
I do.
Oh, it's scary. Even I have a 6 and a 10-year-old. It's scary because you hear these stories. You've lived through this. That there's people's whose life it is to try to enter your world. And as what advice to parents that you need to be involved in? I look on devices and don't just be a friend with your kid, be a parent as well.
Yeah, don't just, they might hate you for it for a little bit, for being overprotective, but it's better for them to be angry with you than something to happen to them. That's just how I see it.
How important is honesty? Like I tell my daughter, you can tell me anything. I won't be upset. Just the communication is probably extremely important.
Honesty is very important. In my opinion, I'm gonna charge my phone. I'm sorry.
Oh no, do what you gotta do. Sorry, I'm keeping you.
You're fine. It's just no, you're fine. I love to talk about stuff like this. I just don't want it to die in the middle of
Oh
it.
yeah, that would not be good. But no, some parents are like, okay, I'm hands off. I'm just gonna let my kid be a kid, which I get, but the kids don't know the evil that lurks out there. They really don't.
They don't, and that's one of the hardest things for me that this whole situation, has brought is I lost my innocence. Um, I don't see the world the way I used to anymore. And now I know, there's real evil out there. And I know I'm not ever going to get that innocence back, and that's hard. You know, when
And
you when you've seen real evil, it's like you know, how do you see the world the way you used to?
and it one of my last questions, and it's not something only that is in a movie or on a reality show, a drama. This is real life. And like I just showed, there's 68,000 women right now that people have no idea where they're at. It's probably happening every single day.
Oh, yes, definitely. I also want to, emphasize that it's important to realize that this can also happen to men.
I just looked at a number here. There's about 80,000 men that are also, so yes. And not just, like I said, I have a girl and a boy, 6 and a 10-year-old, and it's not just a female situation.
Yes, it can also happen to men. Yes.
Um, so you are recovering. That's good. And I just, praise you for coming on and helping. And down the road, if you could, speak to schools or groups or whatever, because I think you are the most important person to speak, because a therapist can go to talk to a class or law enforcement, but someone who's lived it, I think you have the most credibility among anyone.
hmm And I actually, this is really what I would love to make a career out of this eventually. I would love to, one day when I can do it and I'm in a position, open up, maybe a nonprofit or something like that, to go in and put more resources out to search for these women, men, and children, that are missing. I just want to help at this point. I feel like that's how I'm gonna heal is if I help other people.
Well, if and when you do that, if you need help getting the word out, I have a big following. Let me know. I will do what I can to help build you up and build your following, because we need more people like you. We need more stories like you. And I know I'm at 45 minutes right now, but the television news only spends about 2 minutes on a story. And I think more talks like this people need to hear, because it's real. And like I said, lately people are saying, "Oh, that really doesn't happen," but as your evidence, it does, and it is every day. Someone just asked, when did this happen? It was 2020,
Too.
last year.
Yeah, very recent.
Oh my god. Okay. Let me just ask any other questions. So, someone asked, when you move to a new place like yourself, now that you know what you know, any advice to someone moving to a new city? How do you deal with strangers or surroundings where you're not? Can you? try to not become a victim, what advice do you have to be able to, give an aura of being strong? How do you know, I don't know
Mhm.
what I'm trying to say, but how are you able to protect yourself if you're in an environment where you're brand new, if you move somewhere? Do you have any suggestions?
Um, it's I don't know what state they're going to be in. I don't know the laws there, but I recommend carrying. I recommend carrying. It doesn't have to be a gun, pepper spray, a taser, something like that. Because these people, who are abducting these people, they don't want to cause a scene. If somebody does try to snatch you or grab you, scream, fight back, because the last thing they want to do is draw attention to themselves.
Okay.
Um, if you can get away from them before, it gets to a point that you can't, try to do that. But just be I hate to say it like this, but just be not weary of strangers, but just don't be so trusting. Because you never know someone's true intentions, and it sucks that that's the world we live in today, but it's just the truth.
And like you said, if it sounds too good to be true, which
It's
is also
not
sad, which is
true.
also sad in society because there are good people out there, but in your situation, someone's offering you a place to stay, they're offering you food, a place to stay. You probably should question what are their motives.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
it's sad we have to live in a world like that, but you are proof that there is reason to question that.
yeah.
Wow.
All we can do is spread awareness and educate people about it. Because a lot of people, it's not that they're uneducated, they just don't know, because for so many years it's been such a topic of stigma, and people just have not wanted to speak about it until now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
That's all we can do is just raise awareness and um, get it out there, like
Oh, you still
um,
there? Oh, you're there. Okay.
sorry, yeah, and
No,
get
that's
it out
fine.
there that this is really happening every single day, and what to look out for, and how to I guess prevent becoming a victim. You can't 100% prevent it, but there's things you can do, like by being more alert and, protecting yourself with something, and just, do your research. Like, are you in an area that this is, a high possibility this could happen to you? Florida, California, and Texas, they are the statistically. I'm sorry, my video is cutting in and out. They are the three highest states for human trafficking. So,
Exact. Okay. I'm gonna eventually put this out on YouTube. I will send you a link, but I will try to get it in front of many eyes as possible. And I think by doing this, if we can save one life or make a difference, I think it is well worth it because it's happening every day. But I'm gonna pray for you and your future, but also you are a very courageous, amazing woman that you are able to speak about this and you're helping people. So I really appreciate it.
thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Okay, I see your signal's going out, so I'll let you go. I will send you a link in a day or two, and keep me updated. If you need any help in nonprofit or whatever you need to do, let me know, and I'd be happy to help.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. There you go, everyone. Yeah, I wanted to dedicate the whole show to this issue because, and I started getting lots of questions after the movie Sound of Freedom, where it involved human trafficking, and people were accusing, the director and others saying that it's being blown out of proportion. It's not true. It doesn't happen. And the woman I just talked to, she said that, human trafficking, kidnapping is not, the white panel van driving down the street and asking a kid, would you like some ice cream to come there? And her situation was she was went to Florida for rehab, and she met up with the wrong person, and the wrong person introduced her to a stranger who ended up offering her a place to stay, ended up kidnapping her and selling her to other people in human trafficking. And she was able to escape because she said that he was most likely planning to kill her. She found shovels and cleaning supplies in the car one day, and he took all of her identification. So I only used her last name, obviously, there because I do not want to identify her publicly. There is still a criminal case going on against the man who did this, and I hope he gets as much prison time as possible. So if you're watching right now, you have children, you have young adults, just listen to her story, and she learned a lot from this, and I hope you can as well. So I really appreciate you for joining us, everyone. Coming up on Sunday on my Keeping It Real show, we're going to switch topics. We're going to be interviewing a 16-year-old author. He is a published author climbing the charts when it comes to publications. And I'm going to introduce you to him and what he has published. And we all need some good news every once in a while. But I thought this was very important to bring to light because of that movie, Sound of Freedom, but also the fact that this is something that's going on every single day, and we can all use a reminder. So thank you very much, everyone. I will see you on Thursday.